Hi, everybody. It's Carrie Williams, and I am here today to either introduce you to OpenSciEd or just talk you through the basics about their instructional model and help you get a better idea of how OpenSciEd is used in the classroom. So first of all, I want to start with the instructional model. The instructional model is what we call a storyline, and this is very common with NGSS curriculum that we use the student questions to drive the learning. And so we introduce the unit with an anchoring phenomenon, and this will happen at the start of every unit. And then we use those questions to drive the investigations in each lesson. So students see that their questions are the reason why we are participating in the investigations. So that helps with motivation. It also helps with the process of figuring out and creating coherence between the lessons. So we take those questions and we put them on a driving question board. This can be done digitally or on poster paper. In a later video, I will talk more specifically about driving question boards. And then we use that driving question board and reference it as we navigate to the next lesson. So we say, okay, well, we got all these questions. Which one should we figure out first? And we come up with some investigation ideas. And then we navigate to an investigation. And so students will participate or plan an investigation. And then once we've collected and analyzed the data, we will then put the pieces together. So when we put the pieces together, we're saying, what did we figure out? We'll come to consensus about what we have learned. What science ideas have we figured out? Now, notice we're shifting from the learning about, taking notes, and teachers telling us or telling the students what they're learning about to students now coming to an understanding of the science ideas and figuring it out from their investigation. So once we put the pieces together, we'll say, okay, well, we learned these ideas. That's great. And we look back to the driving question board and we say, but wait, there are more questions there that we still don't know the answers to. And that's what we call the problematizing routine, where we say, we've got these ideas, we figured this out, but we are still very unsure about this, this, and this. So then we will navigate to the next investigation. And once we do that investigation, we continue doing this. We put the pieces together, we problematize until all of our questions are answered, or at least the ones that are related to this unit. You most likely will have some outliers, whether it be something just related but off topic or whatever the case may be. There's a lot of ways to deal with that, and I'll talk about that in a later video. So this is the progressions of the units for middle school with OpenSciEd. You can see that it's integrated. So the orange are the physical science units, the purple are the earth and space science units, and the grayish green are the life science units with performance expectations in those domains. We also have engineering that is embedded into those domains as well. And you can see that the units build upon one another. So if we start with light and matter in sixth grade, there's also, you can see there's actually a life science and a physical science performance expectation hit in this unit. So even the unit is integrated. And we build students' ability to participate in discussions and engage in modeling. And so we really build their ability to engage in the science and engineering practices. And then we build upon that in the next unit for thermal energy. And you can see these lines connect the units. So this thermal energy unit will then be referenced and referred back to in cells and their development. It'll also refer, if you follow the line, back into contact forces. So these ideas are built upon and it's spiraled as we hit all of the elements of the DCIs by the end of 8th grade. I've had a few questions asked to me from school districts about what do you do if we have a school that is 7th, 8th only, and our 6th grade is still a part of the elementary school system and they don't do science every day. And of course, we're going to have to leave a few units out. And actually, in year 1, teachers really struggle to get through all the units. So as we all know, as we better understand the curriculum and we've implemented it, we can go faster. And we can also cut a few things out if the students seem to be getting it. So I would say in this first unit, it's really important to start with light and matter and thermal energy because we are going to build upon those at the end as well as in later units. And it also is a really good starting place to build classroom norms, how to participate in discussions, how to model. So probably a good idea to start with these 2 units. And then these 3 units right here, you could potentially fill in the gaps when you get to natural resources and human impacts. You're going to see it's going to build upon there. So that's one potential place to build those into the units in 7th grade. But that is definitely a district conversation, and you will have to make those instructional decisions on your own. I do think cells is probably a good one to get to in 6th grade, because you are going to build upon it again when you get to metabolic reactions, as well as contact forces and sound waves. And I think you're going to and matter cycling, genetics, all of that. The cells is a pretty important foundational unit to get to. So this is just my opinion, nobody else's, but I do think that 6.1, 6.2, and 6.6 are pretty good units to do if you have a limited amount of time in 6th grade. Now, I want to share with you some of the resources that make up the unit. You will see, and it's a good place to start. Well, the teacher handbook is a description of everything in OpenSciEd. That's a really good place to start. But the teacher guide for every unit gives you a lot of information about the entire unit. So that is one place to start per unit, as well as a unit storyline. And this unit storyline is a very simplified version of what happens in each unit. It's a snapshot of what's happening in each unit, what are the learning goals. So that is the best place to start, is the teacher guide, as well as the unit storyline. And you will find in every Google folder that there are class-facing slides for every lesson. I do suggest you go through the slides while you are going through the teacher guide, and then you will understand the rest of the documents in the Google folder. There will be student consumables. If I move my face here, there will be student non-consumables like procedures to a lab. So you can either paste these student consumables in a notebook. You might decide to have them write some things down directly into the notebook. The best thing about this is you get to make it work for you and for your students and for your teaching style. But you will be overwhelmed when you open up a Google folder, because there's so many resources as well as Spanish versions. And so in my next video, I'm going to talk about how to kind of navigate that Google folder. But this is what you'll find in there are the teacher guide, the unit, storyline, teacher handbook, class-facing slides for each lesson, and then a bunch of handouts that you will use. All right. So this is what, if you open up the unit storyline, you will see what it looks like. It will start with the storyline, which is also, and there's a link to it as well in the Google folder, but you will see the unit storyline. You will see, one thing is important is open the table of contents, and you'll see everything that is included in this overview of materials, teacher backgrounds, assessments, everything you need to know about the unit. So really, this is the best place to start per unit, is the unit overview materials. Get the big picture of the unit before you dive into each of the lesson folders. Then once you understand the whole unit, then you will open up each folder which contains the lessons. And in each lesson, it's going to go into great detail. It provides 3D learning objectives. They're also described in that overview, but now we're going to go into more detail. And it also provides a snapshot and pacing, as well as exactly what you're going to do. Now, some people get a little freaked out when they see all the scripting, but it's actually not scripting. It's suggestions on what teachers could say or questions you could ask and potential student responses. But a lot of the really well-informed OpenSciEd teachers, they pick and choose what they use out of the Google folder. Some don't even use the slideshows once they really know the unit, but then teachers that are newer to this, they like to use that slideshow because it helps prompt them on what to do next. And it provides a lot of prompt for students as well. So you will figure out what resources you need and what work for you in the Google folder. The unit overview of materials also provides an assessment system overview. I will go into this a little bit more in the next video as I navigate a Google folder of a unit. But this tells you where your pre-assessment opportunities are, where your formative assessment opportunities are, where the summative assessments will be found in the unit. So it gives you an overview. Again, they will appear in each lesson as well. Now, there are a lot of questions surrounding grading with OpenSciEd, and of course, OpenSciEd cannot give you guidance about how you're going to grade, because every district, every school has a different culture for grading. And actually, grading is really shifting across the country into more equitable practices using 4-point rubrics and standards-based grading. So this is something you'll have to figure out in your own professional learning community. But the most important thing is don't grade everything. Is probably my biggest piece of advice. There are a lot of lessons. You are not going to grade it all, but you're going to shift your culture so that students realize that lesson 2 and lesson 3 work is going to be used on the summative assessment. So if I don't do well on my model, or if I don't do my progress tracker that I'm showing right here on the screen, then I may not do well on my assessment. So the better I do on my work throughout the unit, the better I will do on my assessment. And that's a culture shift. That takes time, but it definitely works. This is also a progress tracker that was made by a wonderful OpenSciEd teacher and professional learning facilitator for OpenSciEd. This is Kira Van Winkle. Thank you, Kira, for this beautiful progress tracker. She drew it up or created it on a Google Doc. She prints it out. They put this in their notebooks, but then she keeps a 3-ring binder. You can see she has one for each period here, period 3, period 4, period 5. And so she does this under the dot cam. And then if someone's absent, they can come in and copy it into their notebook. And so that's one way to do that. Another thing is collect, if you're going to use the consumables, collect them, grade them, and then return them to place them in a notebook. Do not take the notebooks home. That is crazy to go through all the notebooks. Just take a stack of papers home and then turn them back to students and put them in the notebook. Also, allow students to use their notebooks for the final assessment if you feel that this is going to help them, because then they will try harder on all of the assignments that they're doing. The other thing that's wonderful about everything being in a Google Suite is that you can easily integrate it into a learning management system or into Google Classroom. And a lot of us have become very accustomed to using these. So you can just upload them straight in and the copies are made for students. This is one example of how this can be done where you post daily. I think this one was done by Nicole Bulldog, which is another professional learning facilitator for OpenSciEd and wonderful middle school OpenSciEd teacher. She uploads stuff every day that they will use. And she also, if you can see, numbers it. This is page 1 in the notebook, page 4 in the notebook. So that helps them organize their notebooks. You also see that sometimes they mini screencast or do a mini lesson and they'll narrate over the slide. So if students are gone, they'll do a screencast to catch students up. So that's been especially helpful with students that are have to be home for periods of time. Here's another example. You can post by the day, you can post by the week. This one I think was done by Kira Van Winkle, and she has a weekend review. So at the end of the week, she will post everything. You can see September 6th weekend review, everything they did that week so that people can catch up if they are at home. And she also has paper copies in the classroom. This is a little bit blurry, but you can see her weekend review. She talks about the driving question board, ideas for investigation, vertical and horizontal collisions, which is lesson 2. So she just kind of types up a summary of the parts of the lessons that they have gone through, which is pretty awesome. She also uploads the files that the students will need for the week. And again, she has this because I don't think they have Chromebooks every day in their classroom. So she has paper copies, but here are the digital copies. All right, and now we're going to take a look at another suggestion. This one was done by Nicole, and she has a Jamboard that she's created that provides anything that she wants as public to be seen by the whole class. So a lot of posters are made during these lessons, and so you can take a picture and put them in a Jamboard so that they can be used and shared with the class and the class community. Also, you can put sticky notes straight into the Jamboard. So let me open this up. So here you can see some noticing and wonderings after the anchoring phenomenon was presented. I do think that Nicole is typing these herself and she's not having students just add randomly. They're sharing out after they've probably talked to a partner and or written down in their notebook, and they're sharing out. She's typing, because Jamboard can be quite crazy if you allow students to type on there themselves. I have also heard of assigning a quick typer as the recorder, and so they come up and they type for the teacher. So these are noticing and wonderings, a part of the anchoring phenomenon routine. And then you can see this would be related phenomenon, helping it become relevant. These are all steps that are written out in the lessons. And you can see here's investigation ideas, a consensus model, the driving question board. Here's questions that they figured out. So all of this is easily documented in a digital space. And then you just give the link to the Jamboard to students in Google Classroom. I hope that was a good introduction to OpenSciEd to help you prepare to get ready to open up and navigate through the Google Drive folders. That will be my next video. So I hope it's helpful. And the beauty of this open source curriculum is that you do get to make copies and edit and revise the documents to meet the needs of your own classroom, your students, and your learning style. All right. Have a great day.